Good morning, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. I'm Serena, and I am very interested in the intersection between information security and humans. In this talk, we're going to take a wee step outside of our industry. But before we get started, I want to introduce you to someone who I think is pretty cool. This is my dad. My dad is pretty cool. He had a stereo startup in the 90s. He's like literally a rocket scientist, and he's a total nerd. In the 90s, he introduced me to this. And we nerded out over this. Remember how it was so fast? So my dad is a pretty smart guy. He knows about computers, and he knows about how the internet works. But this is his operating system. And this is his internet browser. So we're well into November now, which means chances are, in about a month, a lot of you will also go and see your extended families. And you will then perform your annual duty as their IT support. And chances are, you're probably going to see some stuff that's pretty horrific as well. Sometimes it's easy to get stuck in our highly technical bubble and forget about the outside world. InfoSec is even a bubble within a bubble within a bubble, which is so very insulated from everyone else. But security is something that everyone deserves. Everyone deserves security, no matter what relic of an operating system you're using. Really? Everyone? Security is hard. I don't have to tell you that. We're in the middle of our annual week-long therapy session. It's a tricky job. And in our industry, there's such a huge spectrum of problems to deal with, from the super complex to just the silly. So I get it. It can be overwhelming. And the problem is so massive in scope that it can be easy for us to just cut our losses. So that's what we do. We choose to focus on the people who are doing the right things. And we say to people, like my dad, if you're doing the wrong things, like using Windows XP, I can't help you. I'm sorry. Security is hard, so of course people aren't good at it. So I'm sorry, we say to these people, we can't help you. But in saying so, we give up on the vast majority of people who use the internet. And these people doing the wrong things, they're not just a few weird technophobes. These are your aunties and your uncles and your parents and grandparents, your friends. These are also your CEO, your boss, your colleagues. So what if we didn't give up? No one chooses to be insecure. What they're choosing is connection to their communities. They're choosing tools and resources that might help them solve a problem. And yes, sometimes they're choosing the possibility that they might have won $5,000. But everyone all the time are just trying to make the best decisions that they can with the knowledge and the resources that they have. And everyone deserves security. And yes, security is hard, but what if people aren't good at security because it's hard? What if security is hard because the majority of people who use the internet aren't engaged in security? When there's a persistent and systemic problem, it would do us good to look at how the whole ecosystem contributes. And when I say ecosystem, I don't mean ecosystem of technologies, I mean ecosystem of people who use the internet. Perhaps the state of security is in such shambles because it's a natural consequence of a whole ecosystem full of people who don't think about security. Or there might be some people who think about it but are used to insecurity and privacy. But that influences the people who care about security and privacy but don't demand it, which then influences the people who make the tech, but security isn't on the top of their mind. which then influences the people who actually do care about security and make the tech, but they don't have any funding or support from their company. And we're stuck here as the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff thinking, why are there so many bugs and vulnerabilities everywhere? So for today, for a little while at least, we're going to focus on the people who are not us. In this talk, I want to introduce to you some new mental models, frameworks, and new ways of thinking. And I want to show you how we can all help our friends and our family be a bit better with their personal security. And we can take some inspiration from design, behavioural psychology, and the public health sector. Cool. So we're going to take a closer look at who I mean when I say everyone else. We're going to re-examine what kind of advice we should be giving them. And finally, we can dive into how we communicate that advice. So, part 1. Who is everyone else? In researching for this talk, I spoke to 6 people who specifically did not work in tech. We talked about their everyday digital usage, what they cared about, what they didn't care about, and what their current practices were like. And during these interviews, people started to fall into 2 main categories. The first group of people are people who didn't quite have the right idea of what good security was. And it's embodied perfectly in this research paper done by some researchers from Google, what they did was they interviewed around about 200 security experts and 200 non-experts, and then graphed the clear discrepancy between what those 2 groups thought were good security practice. So, yeah, group 1, not quite sure about what to do. The second group is embodied perfectly by my friend Sally. So Sally is up to date with the latest operating system. She knows that reusing passwords is a bad idea. She knows about 2-factor authentication. So Sally's pretty well clued up on good security practice, but there's just one problem. She doesn't do any of them. I know I shouldn't do this, but I cycle through 2 or 3 passwords for all of my accounts. I know about password managers, I just haven't gotten around to it yet. Seems like a big time investment. I've been meaning to change my passwords, but my current password system is just so memorized. And the things that Sally said really resonated with me. Maybe because Sally is me. Or was me. Now I should clarify the quotes are actual quotes from participants in the research, but I did used to do all of those things. So the second group of people are people who actually have a really good idea of what good security looks like. They just haven't implemented it yet. So from my research, we've got 2 very rough personas and 2 main problems to solve. What advice should we give people, and how should we give it? So part 2, what advice do we give? For many, security is a static, non-fluctuating state, something that can be achieved by downloading the right antivirus or using the right kind of passwords, and something to never think about again. But we know that security is an ever-moving target. It's less like a vaccination and more like exercise. Kate makes a great point here. Security is like eat right, manage stress, exercise, and learn a new thing every day. And it is like exercise. There's always room for improvement. It has to be customized to the individual's needs. And it has to be habitual and ongoing. So let's break these down. First, it has to be incremental. All skills in life are built upon progressively. No one is perfect from the get-go. If you don't usually run like me, it's probably a bad idea to suggest to me that I go run a marathon tomorrow. Similarly, if you don't usually think about security, telling someone to then change all of their passwords and get a password manager is probably not the best next step. Well, we want baby steps. If they've got old software, oh no. If they've got old software, just accept the next update. If they use the same password for everything, maybe just change your email password. Start with that, see how you go. Maybe they have memorized passwords. Well, try downloading a password manager. See how you go. The perfect is the enemy of the good. If we suggest behavior that is wildly different from what they currently do, they're probably not going to do it. And not only should this behavior be incremental, but it has to be personalized for the needs of that person. I like to equip you with some rough tools to gauge the different needs of everyday people. So let me introduce you to 3 sliders. Technological capability, privacy needs, and likely adversaries. When someone asks you for advice, these are some rough elements to consider. What is their capability? Are they not comfortable with technology? This is when we can recommend defaults, like just storing your passwords in your browser and using that as the password manager, or relying heavily on smartphone use. If they're more comfortable with technology, we can recommend more custom solutions, like independent password managers, use a hardware key. What are their privacy needs? If they don't want to be seen to the world, maybe we can recommend minimalism, only keeping the profiles that are necessary, regularly purging your followers and friends, and changing contact details. But there also exist people who need to be visible and need to be seen. Maybe they're activists, maybe they lead social movements, maybe they're journalists. So for them, we can recommend obfuscation, like using scheduling to hide their activity patterns. What are their likely adversaries? Are they worried about random script kiddies on the internet? For this, we can recommend just good practice, using unique passwords, 2FA. If their likely adversary is a nation state, maybe don't take advice from my talk. Introduce them to someone who really knows what they're doing, seek professional help. But yeah, put yourself on these scales. Where do you sit? Where do your friends and your family sit? And how would your advice to yourself differ from the advice that you give to them? If you'd like to practice that empathy muscle more, I would highly recommend reading up on these personas done by the Open Internet Tools Project. They're a good kind of description of the different needs of different people. The third quality that our advice needs to have is that it needs to be ongoing. We need to lay a path for progressing. Even advancing to the next stage can be rewarding in itself. So we basically need something like a couch to 5K, but for security. A program of slow but steady improvement where each step is immediately accessible from the last. Maybe we can say, hey, week 1, put a passcode on your phone. Don't worry about anything else, just do this. Week 2, maybe update your email password. Don't worry about anything else, just do this. And we can slowly advance and advance and advance in a really sustainable way. The perfect is the enemy of the good. Security advice is only effective if we make it incremental, personalized, and habitual. Cool. Now we know what to say. How do we say it? First, the bad news. Tell, sell, and shame doesn't work. Which sounds fine, until you realize that this is literally all we do. We tell people what to do, we sell them on why they should do it, and we shame them when they don't exactly do the right thing. Our industry especially has a pervasive culture of shame. We laugh at people and belittle them for doing silly things at every opportunity, whether they're posting their credit cards online or getting their passwords scammed on IRC. We shame people, and this is pervasive. Windows XP isn't just a problem, it's a punchline. But shame doesn't work. One of the people I spoke to while I was interviewing accidentally downloaded some malware because they were trying to pirate Adobe Reader or something. Classic, we've all been there. They didn't seem phased. They said they'd fixed it within about a week. So I was like, cool, how did you fix it? And this is what they said. I Googled it and kept installing antivirus programs until one worked. Shaming culture means people don't ask for advice. They're going to go to Google and randomly download programs and install them until one works. This is horrifying. They said they had downloaded like 4 or 5 different programs until one worked. What were the 4 or 5 other programs doing? We don't know. So what should we do? Well, we can start with treating every mistake as a learning opportunity. As always, there's an XKCD for this. I try not to make fun of people for admitting they don't know things. If I make fun of people, I train them to not tell me when they don't know something, and I miss out on the joy of teaching them something new for the very first time. So next time you see something totally silly and left of field, instead of thinking, what idiot would do this, maybe try asking, hey, can I show you a better way to do this? Which brings us to the next point. Show, don't tell. There's an idea in behavioural psychology called reactance theory, and it's the idea that when you directly instruct someone on what to do, it harms their feeling of choice and free will. And so what they do is they'll either ignore your instructions or do the exact opposite to try and regain that feeling of control. This is why when your parents told you to go clean your room, you might respond with throwing all your toys on the floor instead. So direct instruction doesn't work, and the antidote to this is, of course, leading by example. This is what I would do, this is what I would recommend. And lastly, give people a script to follow. Selling people on why they should do something doesn't work because they already know why. But there might be other cultural or maybe social factors involved. There was a project done in southwest Sydney aiming to reduce smoking amongst Arabic-speaking populations. And selling them on the idea of why they should quit smoking didn't work because they already knew. And in fact, smoking was a sharp point of conflict in many families. So the project developed a whole bunch of different advertisements and campaigns to get people to quit smoking, but one in particular stood out. So through their research, they discovered that there was a cultural norm between guests and hosts. And when you visit someone's house, it's polite to offer someone a cigarette. So there was motivation for change, but they were just missing a way to politely decline a cigarette. So what they did is they ran radio ads in Arabic in the form of a mini soap opera, giving people examples of how you could politely refuse a cigarette. And this turned out to be one of their most successful ad campaigns. It saw a 5.3 decrease in smoking and a 7.8 increase in smoke-free homes. So give people successful examples to emulate. How do we communicate? We can stop shaming people, we can show, don't tell, and we can give people a script to navigate social situations. Tell, sell, and shame doesn't work. But Serena, you might say, you're literally telling us what to do. You're telling us what to do, you're telling us why we should do it, and you're shaming us for shaming other people. You're reverse shaming. Which is fair. So I asked myself, what is something that has changed my behavior significantly? And about 2 years ago, my sister introduced me to this thing called Korean skincare. I'm not someone who puts goop on my face every day, but after watching beauty vlogger after beauty vlogger on YouTube put goop on their face, I went down the YouTube rabbit hole, and now I put like 10 different types of goop on my face every day, day and night, which is pretty significant behavior change, if I say so myself. And when you look at YouTube vloggers, they embody a lot of the principles that I'm trying to preach. They're showing, not telling. They're giving people a choice to opt in and out. They're not telling you what to do. There's no shame or judgment, and in fact, they often show vulnerability. They show how they failed. They outline routines and give people scripts to follow. And there's a lot of different people to follow, so you can find one that's personalized to you. Could it be that YouTube, the mecca for conspiracy theorists and beauty vloggers, could it be that it's the perfect format to communicate security advice? Well, I guess I won't know until I find out. So I gave it a shot. I made a YouTube channel talking about personal security. And these are real videos. I upload one every week, except this week. And here's what I learned. Showing and not telling is hard. The first videos I did, I told people what to do. So it is hard. But people just want you to acknowledge that it's hard for them to do things. After I posted a video, someone commented that they felt really called out and they knew that they had to do something, but they just couldn't, they didn't know how. And I replied with, yes, it is really hard. And that was the key thing that got them to say, oh, maybe I'll give it a go. Being authentic and vulnerable reaches people. It really does. And relatability is important. If they can see themselves in you, they can see you struggle and succeed. They can see themselves struggle and succeed. And I have a lot more respect for YouTubers now. I am running out of time, but this is what I'm trying to say. Be more vulnerable. Be more open. Don't be scared to tell people how you failed in the past and how you've overcome that failure. So, everyone deserves security. The whole ecosystem influences us. Remember to give advice that's baby steps and habitual and personalised. Don't shame people, help them learn. Give people a script to follow, and lead by example. I guess my whole talk could be just summed up with, be nice to people. It won't make the scope of our problems smaller or the world any less on fire, but you'll be amazed at how far just being nice and helpful and open can get you. Good luck, and thanks for listening. Shout out to these wonderful people.